So thank you so much for sitting down with me. I'm sitting with Haley Reitzel, who teaches at Caldwell Early College High School, and I'll let you tell a little bit more about yourself and your background.
Okay, so like Caitlin said, my name is Haley Reitzel, and I teach here at the Early College. I've been here, this is my 12th year working here. For the first 10 years that I was here, I taught Honors English 1 and Communication Skills, and then last year I decided to move to Senior Seminar, which is really like a life skills course for students to help support them in their college classes and on their journey into college, career, and life. So a lot of those preparation for college things we do in seminar. But I love the early college. I think that it's a great place to be, a great place to work. It's really a community environment, and that's why I've been here for as long as I have been.
Perfect. So describe your personal and educational background.
Okay, so I went to Appalachian State University after high school, and well, that's not entirely true. I did go there after high school, but I started at Catawba Valley Community College, and I did not earn an associate's degree. I just earned my transfer credits that I knew that I needed in order to attain my degree at Appalachian State University. So after 2 years of taking my gen ed classes, I transferred to App as a transfer student and took my courses that I needed in order to get my degree in English secondary education. And I completed that degree and thought a long time about grad school and what that could look like, or what I might want to study in the future, like whether it would go in the direction of education or more English direction. And I decided to go in the English direction. And so 3 years ago, it may have been 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago, I started grad school at Lenore Ryan University, and I'm in the MFA Creative Writing program, and I graduate this May, so I'll have my Master's in Fine Arts.
Awesome. Perfect. Okay, so describe a positive core memory from your K-12 classroom experience. I guess it's you or a student.
Okay. I think one positive memory that I have would be in middle school. I really loved my 7th grade English teacher. She met us at our level and talked to us like people, which I hadn't really experienced before. Like there's always been like a hierarchy in a classroom up until that point, and there still was that degree of respect that existed, but she just talked to us and let us have opinions and discuss life and what we were reading. It was an English class, what we were reading in class, and it just felt different. It felt like a different environment than what I was used to. So I thought that was a really positive experience, and it's really what led me to want to teach English, was that class.
Perfect. And in that kind of same realm, describe a negative core memory from your K-12 classroom experiences.
A negative core memory, well, there's plenty of those. I guess my most negative core memory that I have was the 2 years that I was in private school before I went into public school. So my kindergarten year was actually a good year, but my first grade year was really a nightmare at the Christian school that I was going to. There was a certain color of the carpet we had to walk on. We couldn't walk on the other side, and the carpet was tiny. And then they would come and fuss at us if we had water on the sink, and we had to wear our hair a certain way, certain clothes. One of my friends got in trouble because she was swinging her ponytail too much in class. I got my paper taped down to the table because I didn't tilt it when I was writing in cursive. I've always been a very quiet person, and I got in trouble all the time there, and I think it really influenced the way that I live my life. So that's definitely negative.
Alrighty, and then you kind of touched on this a little bit with one of your other responses, but what led to your interest in education?
My interest definitely started with English. So since I was a young child, I have loved to read and I have loved to write. And my mom kept all my journals from when I was younger, and I'm able to go back and I would sit down in front of the TV and watch episodes. It was Little Bear on PBS back then, and then I would write in my journal stories about Little Bear and Franklin the turtle and all those stories. So my love of stories really sparked the interest in me. And then like, what can I do with this love and this passion that I feel for English that's going to help other people? And that's kind of what led me into that. I mean, I had that experience with my 8th grade teacher that was so positive, but that's what really led me to want to teach, is that first love for English and then passing that potentially to others.
Awesome. Okay. So describe your typical work day.
My typical work day, well, I get here pretty early, so I'm here 7:10-ish each morning, just for my sake of well-being, to know that I'm here on time and I can get settled. And I get set up for the day. I make sure that everything's right on Canvas so that students who aren't necessarily in the building still have access to the materials outside of the classroom. I set up my classroom as far as like getting things ready on the board for students to come in so that they feel prepared and knowing what's going to happen in class that day. I can grade in the mornings because I do have planning in the mornings. Sometimes I have seminar meetings in the morning, which is with other teachers. We collaborate and discuss what's going on in the building for the sake of vertical alignment. And really that's my focus for the beginning of the day, is making sure the plans are solid and grading to give students feedback on assignments. Then any logistical things that need to be done with the school I can deal with as well. Then I'll have classes, and on Monday, Wednesdays I have 3 classes of students, and on Tuesday, Thursdays I have 4 different classes of students. So a total of 7 different classes with 59 students, and we go through seminar and college prep and all of that. And then I have an English support time in the afternoon that students can come to if they need extra help and support with their English class, or any class really, just a time to work. So that's kind of how the day ends.
Okay, perfect. And then this one kind of is a more broad question, but what is your educational philosophy?
That is a broad question. My educational philosophy. I really believe in exploration when it comes to ideas and concepts, or even more like concrete jobs. Like I think about like the fact that job shadowing is such a big part of the 12th grade seminar curriculum, and it's so important for kids to get out and watch and shadow these jobs that they think that they want, so that they don't get caught up in a 4-year degree program and then find out at the end of it that this was not my love and this was not my passion. So I think experimenting as far as seeing the world in different ways and sharing ideas. I'm really student group focused. Like, I believe that students should talk more in a classroom than I should. So that's really at the focus of all of my lessons. How can I get these students to talk to each other about these different ideas and still gain something from that?
Awesome. Okay. And then, is your education philosophy influenced by any educational theorists, and why or why not?
I think a lot of my philosophy comes, this isn't specific necessarily, but I think a lot of it, or maybe it is specific, comes from the NC New Schools that used to exist. When I first started working here, I had to go to this 2-day workshop with NC New Schools, which no longer exists. But it was the most eye-opening workshop, I like experience that I've had is because they put us as students in classrooms and they showed us actively how to use these protocols in the classroom with the itty bitty book of classroom protocols. They used us as students to teach us those things, and I was able to pull so many tools from that in setting up my classroom to where I wasn't standing in front of the students and lecturing. It was they were doing the work. I have to put more work up front to facilitate these things to happen, to facilitate these protocols and make sure that students understand group roles and expectations. But once that work is done up front, the outcomes are definitely worth it. But I think a lot of my educational philosophy comes from that experience. I really wish that there was something that, or maybe there is and I just haven't seen it, but I wish everybody had to go to that workshop days. They were very good.
Perfect. And then, in your opinion, how do students learn in an educational setting and why?
Well, I think students can learn when they feel safe. Like, if a student doesn't feel safe, they're not going to learn. And those basic needs need to be met. They need to be safe. They need to not be starving. And I'm so grateful that we still have the free lunch and breakfast right now, because I can just send students down for that. So once we have those needs met, then we can work on these higher order thinking skills and develop the critical thinking that they're going to need for college, career, and life. So core needs need to be met, and then students explore ideas, discuss ideas. It's so important that they talk about things and research. And then I think learning can happen. I think a lot of research has to happen with students actively researching and engaging in materials and questioning the authenticity and reliability of those articles as well.
Perfect. And then, in your opinion, what is the ideal relationship between student and teacher?
Ideal relationship would be one of mutual respect, definitely. I think students have to know that you're human and you make mistakes. Like, there can't be a sense of defensiveness, you know what I'm trying to say,
Mm-hmm.
coming from the teacher, because that's going to be met with a lot of, aggravated behaviors from the students. So I think if the teacher comes with the idea that I am a person and you are a person as a student, and we can meet each other at the same level, like we're exploring these topics together, we're explorers on the same world, I think that that's an ideal relationship to where students feel comfortable enough to ask questions and pursue interest and not just terrified of looking at someone the wrong way or anything like that. Like, they need to feel that you're approachable, with also the boundaries that I am still your teacher. Like, I think that that's also important.
Perfect. And then, what do you feel your role is in communicating with families?
My role in communicating with families, that's a big role that I can speak for right now in my life. Communicating with families depends a lot on how students are doing in their college classes. So anytime I get alerts from the college liaison saying that a student is not attending class or that they're struggling in class, I copy and paste that notification and I send it straight to the parent via Parent Square. So I believe that parents should be completely informed on what their children are doing in school and how their children are doing in school. So I try to keep that communication open. If it's a message to everyone, I send it, of course, as a post on Parent Square so that parents can access it and then message me individually if they have questions. But I think just keeping parents informed, especially when students are falling behind, is really important so that there's just that open line of communication.
Yeah, great. And then you kind of already touched on this, but how often and for what reasons do you communicate with families? So you said for alerts for college classes, and then whole school information or whole grade information.
Yes. So the benefit of my job right now, and I think this is a really huge benefit, is the fact that this is the second time I've taught these students. So when I was teaching freshmen, my main goal at the beginning of the year was to put out as many positive parent contacts as possible to form positive relationships. So whenever I say now, when I'm talking to you about this and I'm saying I only send it out whenever they're failing, that's really why. I have an established relationship with these parents and with these students from previously having taught them. So it really depends on how the student is doing. Because I have that relationship already set up, I don't send out as many positive contacts this year. Will that change when I teach students who I haven't taught before? Absolutely. It really depends on who you have and where you are. But some students, I feel like I talk to their parents every day. Other students, I talk to them once every so often if they have a question, or if I have a question for them. It just really depends on how that student is doing, how they're faring at school.
Perfect. And then how do you assess student progress?
So I get weekly updates as far as college grades go, and then of course I have my own grades for high school seminars that I can assess and check in and make sure that students are doing what they're supposed to. I also have the benefit of working on a team that is super helpful to know that we're all seeing commonalities in students. Like if a student is struggling in seminar, they might also be struggling in economics and personal finance, or attendance issues. Maybe they're not showing up to their AAA time, advise, assist, assure, that our student support specialist has with them if they are starting to fall behind or if they're taking online classes. But I just try to keep track as much as possible. And our MTSS document is a really good home for information and progress monitoring with that information. So if a student hasn't been showing up and then continues not to show up, all of that evidence is presented in one place for anyone to see.
Okay, perfect. How do you keep students from being bored?
That's a great question. How do I keep students from being bored? I think that as seniors, they have so much going on in their lives that it's difficult for them to have time that they're bored, to be honest, because they're dealing with a lot more college classes than they are high school classes for the first time in their lives, and freedom and independence that they haven't had. But I try to also incorporate some fun things into class, like on days where it's an off day where I don't get to see all the students, I sometimes make trivia, and it's just like a brain break day, like where I realize you've got a lot going on in your college classes. I realize you've got a lot of things going on at work and life. Like, let's play trivia with the categories of pop culture and food and stuff like that. Like, just something that's fun. And they tend to really enjoy that. And those moments, like, I think are helpful. Those brain break days that we all need.
Yes, definitely. You kind of also touched on this earlier. What assessment tools do you use regularly to monitor student academic progress?
So, as far as like classwork goes, everything I do is just formative assessment. My class is really task-based because they have to have these skills in order to move forward in their lives. So really it's like little check boxes. Is a student able to do this task? Yes. Then move on, then go on, and so forth. And so I do a lot of formative assessment, and they're all through the platform Canvas is how students submit all of their work for me, and that's just so that parents can also access and see, and there's that just transparency when it comes to at least grading students, assigning a grade to the task that the student's supposed to have accomplished. It holds them accountable as well.
Perfect. And then describe a time when a lesson was not going well and what did you do about it?
So I try to gauge that as, like, I always tell students, my first class is going to be the worst class because I don't know what to expect. So with that, I try to learn, like, oh, if this part didn't go well and 5 kids had this same question, I obviously did not explain that part well. So I need to figure out a different way to say it in my next class. And then the next time I have the first class again, address any misconceptions that may have happened in the first, or if students finish things a lot faster than I thought that they would and I don't have anything for them. I think teaching so many years has allowed me to have a treasure chest of things that I can just pop out of nowhere and be able to pull out in a class, whereas a new teacher, when you finish, and I'm not saying this about anyone but myself, like, you're like, oh gosh, what do I do now? Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know what to do with the time. I guess we're all going to sit here. Mm-hmm. So I think teaching experience allows for that to occur pretty well.
Okay. And then describe your best and worst teaching experience to date.
Okay. Best and worst teaching experience. That is such a huge question. I don't know that I can answer it. I like my best teaching experience. I don't know that I can have one best teaching experience. I will say, like, anytime I could get a student in a room to come to class and sit down and be able to read and write and think and speak all those things in class, that is the best day, because we might not do everything right and I might not explain everything perfectly, but if a student is present in my classroom and willing to try, that's really the best day, the best thing that can happen. Like, I don't really measure my teaching in my accomplishments, really. So if they get through English or they get through seminar and they do well in them and they're able to continue in school, I think that that's my best day teaching. My worst day teaching would have to be back my first year of teaching. It was an interim position at a traditional high school, and I really didn't have the support system like I do here, which again is another reason why I've stayed here so long. I was thrown into a room with students with serious behavioral issues, and I didn't know how to navigate that because I did not have the support system that I really should have had. So navigating that, and I think I would do much better now, but as a new teacher, that I really felt like a failure when it came to that class and trying to control what was happening in there. Those were dark times.
Okay, explain how you would adapt a lesson for a special needs student. That could either be a student with disabilities or for gifted and talented students.
Okay, well, anytime we were doing a multi-step activity in class, and if I had a student with some kind of learning disability, I would break it down in different ways. So, for example, I did an escape room activity with students once, and everybody had a sheet, like a goal sheet of what they had to accomplish, and I very specifically made certain students have not just more steps, but more intricacies in those steps, and that would be for my higher achieving students. And then the ones who I knew couldn't handle the numerous tasks, I tried to break it down and be as specific as I could possibly be, and this is one step, this is the next step, and then that way they weren't having to like process multiple steps, because I know that that's a struggle that a lot of students have, just breaking things down and simplifying language too. And test, of course, I would come up with several different versions of that for students depending on what their disability was.
Perfect. What do you consider your most effective teaching strategies and why?
Most effective teaching strategies. I think, well, it really differs, I think, between the subjects that I've taught. Because in English, it was definitely those core, the common instructional framework of writing to learn, collaborative grouping, like the literacy groups, like that was the implementation of those and those protocols is what helped shape freshmen, I think, for the rest of their career at our school. Like as long as that was established then they're able to carry it with them throughout the school. But as far as strategies go now, I really think that my main goal is to make something worth their time. Like if I'm asking a child to do something as a senior who has a lot of life things going on and a lot of class going on in other places, I need to make their time with me worth it by doing things that they're going to actually use, like resumes and writing their college essays. So things that they're going to actually apply, like looking at college degree plans and what credits transfer from here. We printed those out today, the bachelor degree plans, and I had them go in and pick out at least 5 classes that they could still take that would pertain to their degree and not necessarily just their associate's degree. So just things that they're going to actually need.
Perfect. What strategies do you use to get to know your students at the beginning of the year?
Well, for the past 2 years, I've had the luxury of knowing my students, so I have not had to worry about that. But I was thinking about this the other day, because after next year I'll have known these students, but after that, I won't. And I've been thinking a lot about that. Like in the freshman year, I had things that I knew that I would do with them, like the summer camp that helped prepare them for school. And then I had certain icebreaker games, and I'm going to have to bring some of those back and do those and have them come, of course, before school begins and do a little getting to know you stuff, which I think will be refreshing, or I hope will be refreshing for them, like entering into their senior year, still some level of normalcy in their lives. So that's my goal right now, is to figure that out.
How do you handle behavioral issues in the classroom?
I think the number one way to handle behavioral issues is to not escalate any situation. Like, it is my job as a teacher to remain the calm presence in a room, because once I lose it, then other people start feeling uncomfortable and people get aggressive and defensive, and that's the opposite of what we need whenever we want like a functioning environment where children learn. So I think automatically the first thing to do is to de-escalate. I mean, if it's to the point where the child is flipped their lid to the point where there's no turning back, then they're gonna have to leave the classroom. Like, that somebody's gonna have to come and be with that child if it's to that point. But I think if you can de-escalate a situation and say just something as calmly as you can is, let's talk about that later, or just something to acknowledge the fact that you're doing something wrong, or you're saying something that you shouldn't be, and we're going to talk about it, but now is not an appropriate time to continue this conversation.
Yep. What strategies do you employ to maintain order in your room?
I am a huge fan of to-do lists, so that is how I establish my Canvas page, which is what I have set up for students, of course online, and then on my board when I set up in the morning. So each day there's a to-do list, and I have all the agenda items listed there with the announcements, and students just work their way through the to-do list with me giving instruction as we go. So I think it's just, I'm a very visual learner, so I really veer towards that in a lot of my teaching, and that to me is a really helpful thing to have. And having taught a while, like, students like to be able to check things off lists as well.
And then, what type of students do you like to work with? And then please tell me what type of students you believe you can teach most effectively.
I mean, I think every teacher wants to work with students who care and are curious about the world and willing to have conversations. Like, I think that that's, like, every student's ideal student is someone who wants to be in school, right? But that's not always what we get. And that's not always who we can teach the best either. Like, sometimes people learn, or students learn, when they're pushed in ways that they haven't been before. I don't know if there's a certain type of student that I feel like learns more from me than others, because it's been interesting to see who emails me after they graduate, like years after they graduate, and says something to me, and it's not always who I would think it would be, or the people who write me a note at the end of the year talking about something that they've learned from. It's not always the same type of student, and I don't know, I haven't pinned that one down.
Perfect. Okay, thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
letting me interview you, and I hope you have a good day.
Thank you, Caitlin.